Let's learn how to use a matrix to solve a system of equation. A matrix is a simple way where we can organize information. There are two things we need to pay close attention to. One, we need to know our number of equations. And two, we need to know our number of terms. The number of equations is 2. So that tells me I'm going to have 2 rows in my matrix. Rows go left to right. I have 1, 2, 3 terms. So that tells me I'm going to have 3 columns. Columns go up and down. So let me build my matrix. I'm going to have 2 rows and 3 columns. Column 1 should be the coefficient of the x's. Column 2 is the coefficient of the y's. And column 3 is just my constants or my numbers. So let's fill in our coefficients. Those are all of the coefficients of the first equation. Now let's look at our second one. Once we've written our matrix, we need to put it in our calculator. You're going to go to desmos.com/matrix. Click New Matrix and change the number of rows and the number of columns. The matrix we just created was a 2 by 3. Now we're going to enter all of our numbers. Hit enter so your calculator knows that you have a new matrix named A. Now click the command RREF. Let the calculator know you're going to use matrix A for this calculation. On the right-hand side, what you see is the solution matrix. Let's read our solution matrix. Remember that all the coefficients in the first column were for x, all of the y's were in column 2, and all the numbers were in the last column. So you can read this first line as 1x plus 0y equals -8. What that means when you simplify is just that x equals -8. Let's look at row 2. 0x plus 1y equals -3. The 0 makes it go away, so you just have y equals -3. And there's your solution. We can build a matrix for any number and length of equations. It just changes the size of the matrix. So to figure out my number of rows, I'm looking at the number of equations. Well, I have 3 equations, so I should have 3 rows. To figure out my number of columns, I'm looking at my number of terms. The maximum number of terms I have is 4. So this will be a 3 by 4 matrix. So I'm building out my matrix, and once again, I'm only going to write the coefficients. What's important is that all the x terms exist in the same column. So the coefficients for all of the x terms should be in column 1. Coefficients for all the y terms are in column 2. Coefficients for all my z terms in column 3. And then my result, my constant, out here in column 4. So I'm going to take my coefficients If we look at this second equation, we are missing our x term. What we need to do is place a 0 in its place. And then we continue like normal. -2, this is a +1, and -1.
Now let's find the solution to our system of 3 equations. I'm going to create a new matrix. I'm going to change the number of rows and columns. And then I'm going to input each of my coefficients. Hit enter. Click RREF and type the letter of the matrix that you used. On the right-hand side, you see your solution matrix. Let's interpret our solution matrix. All the coefficients for x are in the first column. All the coefficients for y are in the second. All the coefficients for z are in the third. And the last column is all of my numbers. So we look and see the only row where x has a coefficient is the first row. So that shows me x equals -5. The only space where y has a coefficient is the second row. So that tells me y equals 6. The only space where z has a coefficient is the third row. So that tells me z equals 11. And that's it. That's your solution.